Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm glad to be with you again. Roy and Alice wrote and asked me, what about long-term care? And as you might imagine, what they're talking about was as they got older and they were in need of medical assistance or health care of some sort, assisted living, what was available institutionally in Panama. I answered them, and I'd like to talk about it briefly with you too, both from the viewpoint of the past, the present, and what I think may be true in the near future. Now, in the past and up to today, Panama follows a tradition of societies all over the planet that in the traditional stage, before they get to high levels of affluence and so-called modernism that we have in North America and Europe today, and that is they take care of their elderly at home. And that is expected of them. They don't complain about it. I'm just so impressed with my Panamanian friends and how they all pitch in the family to see to it that mom and dad are cared for as they get older and need that sort of assistance. However, as the economy grows and more people are employed and other events take place, particularly the fact that they are now keeping us alive far longer than was the case in traditional societies in the past. But that, by keeping us alive, we require more and more assistance, more and more 24-hour care or whatever. It's not that we're able to live independently. So many of us today are alive that might not be alive or made it this far 30 or 40 years ago. Under those circumstances, even the best intentioned family cannot maintain the support necessary to an elderly person. So this will begin to change. And with the growing economy and growing affluence here, people will have the money to consider the institutions. But for the moment, it's still very family-centered here, and I suspect it's going to remain that way for at least the rest of my lifetime. Now, when I came down years ago and I decided I was going to live in Panama, I spoke to friends who'd spent most of their lives working overseas too. And they understood immediately when I said one of the reasons I was coming down is I wanted to get into the society, to get to understand it, to find friends and contacts and relax in that society, because I knew the day would come when I needed help and I wanted to get it locally. And that is what some expats do today, is that, let's say you need a little bit more help on a daily basis. You have a maid who comes in once or twice a week. Well, she can stop by more frequently, just make sure you're okay. Eventually, you may get to a point where you have someone who does the cleaning, but also cooks your meals and prepares them. And then you may move to the next step. Maybe you need some kind of medical care, but low level, but you have to have it every day. And maybe you're having trouble remembering to take that medication. You can have a nurse, you can hire someone who also can come in to support you on a daily basis. And eventually you may even have that nurse move in and live with you for room, board, and a salary. And even under those circumstances, the cost for all of that, I can assure you from my own experience with my mother, is substantially less expensive than in a North American or European institution. But the most important thing to me, the critical element, is the loving care I've seen people give to the elderly and to those who are ill in Panama. Working with the elderly is a profession, and it's something people do because they want to do it. They love doing it. And that care, that love comes through in their treatment. And to be frank, I don't always find that up in the north. And for my mother, her retirement homes, I would meet people who, for them, it was just another job. They were going to be on to something else. And at best, they were not particularly concerned with whether my mother was happy or not. They took care of her. And there were others who actually tried to get money off her, which I found obnoxious and revolting. Now, I also met many people who were excellent people and real caregivers, but I had to be concerned all the time with her vulnerability to staff who were not loving and caring. And I knew from years of travel overseas, I could find that loving and care, and it was authentic, because people working with me would be somebody who wanted to do this and didn't see it as a step to a better job or just a way to earn some money. It was a critical element in my thinking, and every one of my friends who'd lived overseas for years like me understood immediately what I was talking about and agreed. They could see that as one more reason. So this traditional system and the culture that supports it is one of the reasons, as far as I was concerned, to come to Panama, despite the lack of the institutions that we have, the nursing homes and what have you, that we have commonly in North America and Europe. Not a reason not to come, but a reason to come. However, many people do return back to take advantage of their social welfare systems and the institutions at home. That's perfectly acceptable too, of course. Everyone makes their own decision. But for me, it's the attitude is more important, really. It saves money. It's definitely less expensive, although insurance might not cover it. It depends on what insurance package you have. But it's so much less expensive, and more importantly, it's the loving care. That is the critical aspect. So I find today that there are some small alternatives. I visited one house that had been turned into a sort of a nursing home. It handled about a dozen people. One of the retirement wave members' husband had suddenly been stricken, and he was staying there. And I asked if I could come along to see the facility, and I did. And it was amazing. Not only were the staff just wonderful people, and as she said to me, she said, "Bob, you don't know how wonderful they are. You know, if I stay here late and it gets raining outside and driving home is going to be difficult, they just make a bed for me and I can spend the night. There's no charge." It was such a pleasant home-like atmosphere. I couldn't mention it to people because they were full and they had a waiting list. It's just a tiny institution. If you want to call it an institution. And there were a few of these I understood. Now, I believe in the future we're going to have eventually long-term care facilities as they have in your home nation now, in all likelihood. Those will come. They take a special type of expertise, and that's going to have to be brought in from outside because there is no expertise here by tradition. But it will happen. But in the meantime, we have this alternative. Also, I found that expats here are beginning to get together to help each other out, and with Panamanians as well. So I will put the address, the web address of one institution, Panama Hospice, below, down underneath this video. And you can go in and take a look at Panama Hospice and Respite, which is a nonprofit organization set up here to provide assistance of varying kinds to people who need it as they grow older. It's a wonderful experiment. I have not actually utilized their services. I haven't had the need for that, but people who have only good things to say about them. So it's a good example of how those of us who are here are looking out for each other. And as I say, it also provides this sort of service to Panamanians, to people who are in need. And they do a brilliant job. If you do come down, and this is a service you might need sometime, you might consider giving them a donation or giving them some sort of help, because I think they're meeting a real need. So we're at that point where we start with a very family-oriented situation and no institutional support, to small efforts, and now this joint effort among the community here to create something, and a growing market, a growing need for this, even among Panamanians themselves, because their parents are living for such much longer periods of time and need specialized care. We're going to have those institutions, perhaps by the time you need them, if you need them at all. One thing you learn rapidly in Panama is that you say something isn't here, and then 2 years later it's here. Things can move very suddenly and very quickly as a result of the growing economy. So long story short, again, I think there are really good ways of dealing with long-term care that are perhaps outside your experience in the States or in Europe or in Canada, but are real. And you can find them down here if you want to put that effort in. And the type of facility that you may want, that you only find in your home nation now, may well be available here. And if it is, I suspect it will be cheaper down here than it is wherever you are. There are a lot of considerations to be taken into account, of course. Money is one of them. The other, of course, is the quality of the care. But in Panama now, this is my home. As I tell my Panamanian friends, I have every intention of dying here. Why not? It's my home. And I would follow it the way I've come down to, by use of the resources and the people who are available to me, and I would be pleased with that. What works for you may be something else, but that's where I find us standing with long-term care at this moment. It's available, but you sort of have to put it together yourself. You have help from others if you come down, and before you need it, you're going to have the time to make the contacts to make this work for you. So that's something to be taken into consideration, and I hope it's of assistance to you. Thank you.